Foreign Minister Khawaja Asif. Good to have you on the Newsmakers. Thank you very much for taking the time. You are the Foreign Minister of a really enigmatic country because a lot of people struggle to understand what is Pakistan's foreign policy. In a nutshell, if you could describe it, what would you say?
Our foreign policy, I would say, we're trying to get out of the 80s and the last decades, when our foreign policy was oriented towards the US interests in our region, way back in the 80s and after 9/11. We are trying to disengage ourselves with that role which we played in 2 to 3 decades, and have a more regionally oriented foreign policy, a foreign policy which serves our national interest, Pakistan's national interests, not someone far away from our region like United States of America. So our national interest is that is our primary concern, and that is where we stumbled over the last 3 decades, and we are now trying to weave our foreign policy around our own national interest. So we are in a transition, but we are almost there, inshallah.
So as you try to weave it, are you saying that the likes of China with CPEC, of course, and beyond, and the likes of Iran, they are more of a priority than the United States?
Our region is more of a priority than the United States, because they are our neighbors, they are stakeholders. Whatever takes place in our region, they are directly affected. They benefit or they lose, whatever. That is, it's not like United States of America. They come, they do whatever they want to do. We play their proxies, and then whenever their interest is served, or whenever their objectives are achieved, they wash their hands off and go away. That won't happen again. That won't happen again, because that is not acceptable, one, and that doesn't serve my interest, the interest of my people, people of Pakistan. And Iran is our next door neighbor. We share centuries of history, culture, religion, to an extent language also. Afghanistan is our next door neighbor. Their peace is our peace. And China is a very, very trusted friend, trusted over 6-7 decades now. And they have huge investments in Pakistan, converting Pakistan into a corridor, China-Pakistan corridor to the Arabian Sea. Huge investments in power sector. We have strategic relationship. We have defense relationship, and then of course we have a relationship across the Gulf with Saudi Arabia, a historical friend. We have an emotional relationship with Saudi Arabia because of the 2 holy places over there, and of course we again have a defense relationship also with them, a strategic relationship also with them, and the Gulf states. So this is where we live, and this is where we should search for our foreign policy options, not somewhere far off. That is what we are doing now.
So you want to move away from the Americans. The Americans are not happy with Pakistan. Donald Trump putting you on notice, saying we're giving billions of dollars, yet you're funding the very terrorists that we are fighting. General Nicholson saying you're funding the Taliban, Haqqani network. General Mattis saying we're going to give Pakistan one last chance. Secretary of State Tillerson, maybe a bit softer, but also critical. They were all saying you fight one Taliban that attacks you, but support another that attacks Afghanistan and America. Even Afghanistan says that. Are they all wrong, or is there maybe some truth to it? Because you have to live in the region.
They are absolutely wrong. They are scapegoating us for the failures of last more than 15 years, maybe in 20 years, at least since 9/11. And they want a scapegoat for their failures, utter failures, complete failures. They have lost territory to Taliban's, not because of us. They have record opium harvest, 9,000 tons this year. They have huge corruption in the government machinery. Their soldiers sell their arms to Taliban. They have Daesh in three provinces. This is not our doing. They accuse of backing us Haqqanis. Haqqanis don't need safe havens in Pakistan. They have almost 40% of territory, Afghan territory with them, the Taliban. Why should they come and have safe havens in Pakistan? That is something which is absolutely baseless. Perhaps some years back that was true to an extent, but since last now many years, since we pushed our Talibans out of our territory to North Waziristan, Americans wanted that, we wanted that. We pushed them out of Bajaur, Khyber, South Waziristan, Swat. We cleared our area at a huge cost, human cost. 200,000 of our soldiers are fighting these people on the Western Front. What are they doing across the border? Losing territory, having bumper opium crops. What are they doing? Where? You know, the last time Secretary Tillerson was there, the President Ashraf Ghani met him in Bagram. That tells you a lot. They met perhaps in a bunker. That tells you the whole situation of Afghanistan. But we would like to be part of the peace process in Afghanistan, in any bilateral or multilateral platform. I was in Baku just a few days back. But if the people in Kabul, they want to play a proxy of India, that is also not acceptable.
But why would they blame you for example, the June attack, where 90 Afghans were killed, 400 injured?
We had an attack yesterday.
But they said clearly, if you'd allow me to just finish, they said clearly the ISI orchestrated it, and the Haqqani network did it in Kabul at the behest of Pakistan. That was from the Afghan government. Why would they make that up?
You know, again, because of lack of control, lack of writ of the Kabul government in Afghanistan, they want to have a scapegoat, as I said, someone to blame. Like we had yesterday, day before yesterday, attack while we were having a conference in SCO conference in Sochi, and a Heart of Asia conference in Baku. And we had an attack, and people came from across the border, from Afghanistan. We have their phone numbers. We have given their phone numbers to Afghan government. They were in touch with their masters or their whoever was orchestrating that attack from Afghanistan. And actually, we had informed them that we are expecting something to happen on our territory, which is being planned and perhaps financed from Afghanistan. So they already knew there was a contact between two intelligence agencies, I would say, and they already knew, but they couldn't stop it. They have no control.
I see.
They have no control, and they just want. You know, let me put it. You talked of General Nicholson and General Mattis and others who keep echoing the same blame game which you just narrated. Let me, they have all spent a lot of time in Afghanistan. Let me ask them a question. What did they do in Afghanistan? Why did they spend so many billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in Afghanistan?
That's a failure, of course.
Where are those billions?
Right.
That's and there was a time when there were more than 100,000 US soldiers over there.
Right.
Now they are down to 10,000, 12,000.
So they want to boost it a little bit.
What are their actual intentions?
They
Let
want
the
to
world
boost
know.
it. They want to boost it now, and they're sending a few thousand more.
No,
Do you think it will work?
that won't serve any purpose. It is basically a cover for something else they want to achieve in Afghanistan.
What do they want to achieve?
I don't know. I don't know, but at least whatever they are telling,
Yeah.
that doesn't seem to be their purpose. That if that was the purpose, they could have achieved that purpose many years back.
Understood.
When they were in full force over there, when they had the momentum, they had that missionary sort of zeal also. Immediately after they captured Afghanistan from the Taliban's. But the time has passed. No,
But it's interesting, you say they had the missionary zeal, George Bush spoke of a crusade. That was all happening. Pervez Musharraf, perhaps you believe, made the wrong decision, right?
Yes.
But you
absolutely.
yourself have said that you tried to leverage these groups, or Pakistan tried to leverage these groups, because you didn't know what America was going to do, and you had to live in the neighborhood, whereas they could leave. You've said this just a few months ago. You used the word leverage with Haqqani Network, with Lashkar-e-Toiba. You've also said
I didn't name any group, but I did say that due to unreliability of Americans in the 80s and in the last decades, we had to have some sort of hedging done.
And that's geopolitics.
Yeah, just geopolitics.
But you used the word liabilities. You said Haqqani Network, Lashkar-e-Toiba, Hafiz Saeed, these types, they were liabilities. Now, I guess this is an opportunity to clarify it if you want to. When I read that, I think, well, on a balance sheet, you can have assets or liabilities, but it's still yours. It's your liability. If something is a liability, you own it. You control it. So were you admitting that you controlled them?
You write off the liabilities also, and you take losses for that.
So when did you write them off?
You know, we are not backing them at all. This is a perception which was perhaps, as I said earlier, to an extent was correct some 5, 6, 7 years back.
But when did it
But
end?
when we started our operation against them in June 2014,
I see.
we decided that enough is enough. These people have to leave our territory. So we made the disconnect with them. We disengaged with them. We went with full force. We went to after them to push them away from our territory. This was a common goal. At least Americans told us that this is what they wanted. But we did it for ourselves, not for the Americans. But after we cleared them, and you've seen over the last 2 years or 3 years, there is a relative calm in Pakistan.
But that's why the Afghans are saying there's no calm in Afghanistan. So while you're fighting
because
them here,
they have failed and we have succeeded.
Right, I see.
They have failed. They have failed miserably, utterly failed, and we have succeeded. We have regained our territory back. They have lost more territory. So there's a huge difference. There's no comparison. We are fighting for ourselves. The people who are fighting over there, the foreign forces, they are fighting for something else. I don't know.
What do you think it is?
I don't know. You're an analyst. Why don't you analyze?
Something that's interesting about Pakistan is there's this constant claim that the real power is in the hands of the army. So, and this is interesting. I'm interested to hear this from you because you served as defense minister and foreign minister. No matter what you do as an elected civilian leader, ultimately, is it the ISI and the army chief that call the shots?
I don't agree with that, but people speculate or people try to conclude that because of our long history, almost 4 decades out of 7 decades of our independence, since 1947, we have been ruled by the military dictators, 4 military dictators, and in some cases during the intervals also there was influence coming from the military establishment, like I would say to an extent in the 90s, and but since 2008 we are gradually the control has come back to a large extent to Islamabad, to parliament, to judiciary, to executive, to the constitutional institutions. But as we were discussing now, that we have a tense border on the eastern side also, and on the western side also. We have more than 100,000 troops on line of control, and we have had, I think there are in thousands, the violation of LOC in last 1 year. And we are actively fighting the Taliban on our western border. We are putting up a fence over there, and to make our border secure. So the institution of army or institution of our defense forces is actively involved in defending the country, and they are actively involved in the process of determining our priorities. We have National Security Committee, where all the chiefs of armed forces are there. Defense Minister is there, Finance Minister is there, Foreign Minister is there, and Prime Minister is in the chair. So we have this body which is actually evolving our foreign policy or our decision on the defense. So you can say they have a constitutional role of consultation on major issues. They have their input, which is very valuable. At times, it is crucial to decision making. So, if it is interpreted with the background of our military dictatorships, so I think it is just because of that that this interpretation is done by Pakistani watchers. Otherwise, things have over the years since last 2 elections. I think we have traveled a lot on this road towards democracy. We have problems. I'm not saying that there are no problems. Democracy is still evolving. We have institutional problems also, but this happens when your constitutional institutions are paralyzed by military dictators for 10 years, 9 years, 6 years, 11 years. So after this paralysis, when you are coming out of that paralysis, you learn to walk, you learn to run, you learn to control. So we are almost out of it.
So you're crawling or walking now?
We are walking, almost running.
Final question. We've passed the 70-year anniversary of independence from the British partition with India. Ultimately, as somebody who's involved in crafting Pakistani foreign policy, is it still India-centric? Is India still chief enemy, chief competitor, and everything that needs to be done needs to be seen through the prism of what India is doing or what India might do?
I would rephrase what you have just said. Our defense is definitely India-centric. We have almost now since our independence, there is a threat. We have gone to wars with each other, and what is happening since last couple of years on the LOC, on working boundary, that supports this analysis that we have to have a defense policy or defense posture which is definitely India-centric. And India is creating troubles on our eastern border also, on our western border also. They have a lot of influence in Kabul. They have a very solid and huge presence in Afghanistan also. On international forums, on international platforms, Afghanistan sometimes, due to lack of a better word, acts as a proxy also of India in playing the role of. But let me emphasize that we want to deal with Afghanistan on a bilateral basis.
The Indians say you're obsessed with them.
We are not obsessed with them. Why should we be obsessed with them? We are an independent country, a nuclear state. Alhamdulillah, we are a very proud nation. We are not obsessed with them, not at all obsessed with them. But India is a danger to our security, and we must be vigilant about that. You know, that is the only thing we have. That's the bedrock of our defense policy. Foreign policy, I would not say, because for foreign policy, I explained to you earlier what are our priorities and what are our goals. We are looking westward, but not far westward. You know, it's close to our borders, or our western border, Iran in the north, Russian Federation, China, Afghanistan, Central Asian states, Gulf states, Saudi Arabia. We would like to have good relationship with the Indians, but I don't think there is a chance of any improvement of relationship with the present religious extremist government in Delhi.
You think they're religious extremists? Modi's government's a religious
government, what they did in Gujarat when Modi was the chief minister. He massacred over 2,000 Muslims over there. He's massacring Muslims in Kashmir also. So there is actually a genocide and ethnic cleansing of Muslims going on.
You believe the BJP is a religious extremist movement?
Religious extremist movement. Absolutely. Absolutely, because they think this is the easiest way of whipping up the frenzy and to to maximize voter support. It's sad, you know, that after 70 years they have to resort to these crude tactics of vote getting. They have to target the minorities in India, Muslims, Christians, this caste system they have, which is actually a negation of humanity. The caste system itself is a negation of humanity, which negates the basic human values.
But I mean, they could say, I mean, you look at Islamabad and you had this group of offshoot Barelvis who brought the state to its knees.
Let me explain that.
You can say
also.
Pakistan, you have your problems.
We have problems.
We have our problems.
We have
say that.
We have problems. We have problems. I'm not denying that. But let me explain that. This is the legacy, or this is the carryover of when the whole world got together and religiously radicalized our society in the 80s, because they wanted us to fight with Soviet Union. So we are dealing with that mess which was left over, that debris which was left on our soil by Americans and their allies. And then they again came back after 9/11, and these two huge tragedies, these two huge follies on our part, as far as our foreign policy is concerned, our preferences were concerned, huge follies. This is the debris of those misfortunes, which I'm not blaming anybody. I'm blaming the rulers when this thing happened in the 80s and after 9/11. So we are dealing with that. This religious radicalization of Pakistan society is a direct outcome of the Afghan war, when they wanted us to fight against Soviet Union, and then they wanted us to be again their proxy after 9/11. It is our mistake. They used us. Now we are dealing with that radicalization, trying to clear off, trying to come back to, as I said earlier, that it's a paralysis. We are trying to come out of that paralysis, and that paralysis is slowly, gradually. We are walking. We are trying to run. We are trying to find our feet, to stand on our feet, and alhamdulillah, we are doing well. We have high hopes.
And when you're sprinting, I hope you'll call us up and do another interview with us on the Newsmakers.
Sure, anytime.
Khawaja Muhammad Asif, Foreign Minister of Pakistan. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.